Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Elaina, thank you so much and welcome for coming on Consulting Leaders. Let's just jump straight into it. You've been through IBM and Uber, but then you decided to, build your own consultancy. What does one need out of their professional life to leave IBM and then Uber to decide to go in sometimes a bit of a hell that consultancy is?
Us crazy entrepreneurs, why do we do the things that we do?
That's the right question, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I just knew pretty early on from my corporate experience that was not going to be the lifestyle for me. As we were just chatting before we started this, I speak multiple languages. I've traveled all around the world. So that was actually a big incentive for me when I was at IBM. I was campaigning for them to send me to China. And when they weren't sending me to China, I was like, okay, I'm going to go and just work for an international company and move abroad and decide to work for myself. And I think one of the most important things was right from making that decision, going to get around people who are doing that. Like I moved across the world to Southeast Asia, where at the time, there were a lot of digital nomads and people at the early stages of, projects and ideas. And, being in that kind of environment was everything in terms of getting it off the ground and never went back. Like, thank God it has all worked out. And I've never regretted leaving corporate.
What problem do you solve now that you have your own consultancy? Like, what is it that you help people with?
Yeah, so people come to me usually when they already have a consultancy, a business, an agency, a brand of some kind that has a product, has, more or less their positioning, they're making some sales, but things are up and down, not consistent. They don't have really good systems. A lot of people come to me when they get referrals, like they're really good at what they do. And so, people kind of happenstance stumble upon their products or services, but they're not like, they don't have really sharp professional messaging. They haven't cracked the social media game. They have not really thought in depth about the scalability of their business model. They don't maybe have the email marketing that actually converts and makes sales. So it's that next step of polishing and professionalism that'll come in. But that said, I've worked with people who are in corporate and have a great idea and they want to quit and build an agency like we have. I'll help them. And I've helped people who are at, $10 million a year, who are some of the top service providers or teachers or course creators in their country. And we're really streamlining and taking the bulk and increasing profitability drastically. So because messaging works so well across the board, I can work with a big company. I can work with someone who's brand new, because if you can say what you do in a really compelling way and you can use the words that your actual ideal client buys into and believes that they need and they want, you can sell anything. You can sell it anywhere to anyone at any level. So that's really what I'm known for and focused on.
About email marketing that converts then, because that's one of the first things that you mentioned, and I think that's underutilized by the consulting industry, because there is such, so as a consultant, your reputation is everything, right? You need to build authority, you need to be perceived as a subject matter expert, and sending emails to people who don't know you might feel like pushy, if not spammy, but done the right way. I definitely believe that there is tons of opportunities in that. So since you're helping people with clear messaging and email marketing that converts, how do you do that?
Great question. So right off the bat, I do a lot of things differently than most consultants or coaches or service providers or course creators. And I'm in all of those categories and work with people in all of those categories. I don't do DMs. I don't do outreach. I don't do cold calls. I don't do bulk sales funnels. I don't run ads. I don't spend any money on ads, you guys. I keep 80 to 90% of all of the money that I make, and have been for years and years, to multiple seven figures. So with that said, I say that for a reason, because I think a lot of people listening to this are running they're spending a lot of time and energy on these top of funnel things before they even get to the email that are not aligned. Like I have experimented with ads. I've had clients that have done ads. What we've discovered is they'll get you some results. They're very expensive to run. But then you wind up getting people who are not the perfect fit client. They're not really good leads and they're not warm leads. So if that's who you're filling your email with in the first place, people aren't going to want to open it, or they're going to feel disconnected from you, which my whole business model is actually built on relationships and audience and reputation and content that builds a lot of authority and credibility with people. So if they're getting on my email list, they've already really bought into something that I'm doing, like a free workshop that gives tons of value, my social media content, which is extremely consistent and high value. So, and the emails themselves are very high value. So that right off the bat is going to make someone a whole lot more inclined to click on the email. And then we add in really good messaging. They're speaking to their problems and desires in a really clear way, not trying to be clever and unique in our marketing, just saying what it is, saying it in a real way, and then having a really strong offer. Those three things combined really help to make email a complete game changer for people, versus what people might be doing who are watching this. Like, maybe you're not consistent with emailing. Actually, the less consistent you are, the more likely people are to unsubscribe, because all of a sudden they're like, who's Guillaume in my inbox? I don't know this guy. I'm unsubscribing. Whereas, when they see Elaina in their inbox every single day for like 8 years, providing strong value, speaking to things they want and need, offering a variety of good products at different price points, that builds repeat buyers and faithful customers.
About what you just broke down, Elaina, is it's actually everything that happens before you even land in the mailbox. It's your messaging, it's your positioning, it's your brand, it's everything that you've done beforehand to build that credibility, authority, trust, so that when you start sending emails, the open rate goes up, the click-through rate goes up, the reply rate goes up, simply because you've already made your case. Now you're just delivering value, and it's up to them to take action on this. I like it a lot. So I think we're clear on what you help companies with. Who's your ideal client? Just so we can have a better understanding of like who this is for in the world of Elaina.
Yeah, I'll typically work with solopreneurs, teachers, in the sense of people who produce courses, who teach on topics, who create high value online content, coaches, brands, agencies, small companies, maybe the owner and like a very small team, and range of startup just going to market all the way to multiple 8 figures. And also people who have, like, they're making sales, but it's not fully like the most ideal client, and they would like to elevate that ideal client. Or people who feel like they're like a best kept secret in their industry, where if you know, and then you get in, they're amazing, but they don't really have a great level of visibility. They don't feel like they're really seen. They're not getting the speaking opportunities, or they're not being seen on social media the way that they want. And overall, they know they can optimize and make things simpler and double their revenue in the next 12 months. That's who I like to work with.
Offer double your revenues in the next 12 months. So this is a perfect segue to my next question, Elaina, which is, as a B2B coach or consultants, which is the audience here and the people we work with, for me, having referrals is the beginning of the job. It means that you're doing a good job enough that people refer you, which is, as a consultant, like necessary, like mandatory if you want to grow a successful business. But where people get stuck is, what happens then, right? You get that steady growth in your business, or you're actually just stagnating, but it's a good living. But how do you take that next step? So maybe back to you, like, how do you position yourself as an authority and as a leader? How do you brand yourself? How do you market yourself so that the solopreneurs, the teachers, the infopreneurs, the brands, the agencies, the small companies go from, I don't know who the hell Elaina is, to, oh yeah, Elaina is, she helps people like me doing XYZ. How do you do that?
One main point that I'll drive home right from the start that's pretty central to the way that I operate is understanding that our audience and our relationships and our reputation are the most valuable asset that we have. So that's more important to me when I'm looking at my own company and anyone else's. More than the product, more than the messaging, more than the niche that they're operating in in that moment. Because I've been online investing and growing an audience since 2010. actually probably a little bit before that. So it's been about 15 years of this. And that's the biggest contributor to my net worth. That's the most valuable thing that I have. And I've personally changed my niche, my product, my positioning at least 3 major times since 2010. And I work with people who evolve and also change their niches and positioning. But yet I've been profitable and have thrived through all those transitions. And my clients thrive through their transitions when it's based on ultimately I have this relationship and people have watched my journey. They've watched me leave corporate, build a consultancy. I've shared those things. I've taught them how I've been doing it. They've seen my client results. They've seen my clients not just be a one-hit wonder and, have a good course launch once and, make that 100K, but keep doing it over and over again and stay in the market and become authorities themselves. So that ability to let people see you and how your company is growing and how it's operating and the integrity of it and, delighting the customers and all of that goes such a long way in the basis of my brand. And then in terms of just how people typically interact with my brand, like right now, if someone's watching this and they're like, okay, I'm kind of intrigued, I want to go watch Elaina, I'd be like, go follow me on Instagram, go get the free things on my website. So it usually starts from people seeing the content, and I'm very, very direct and clear with the types of social media content I'll create so that it's very problem focused. It's helping people to be, more solution aware, to see the approach that I take and why it's so effective for agencies, coaches, consultants. And then they usually go from the free content and getting bought in to at least oh, she's got interesting things to say, I'm going to follow her. Then I do a workshop model. So pretty much every month in my business, I run a free workshop that people can sign up for. And that's the next stage of the conversation. We have the short form, I'm sure you'll pull little clips of this from your podcast and put it on social. And that's an initial curiosity where they want to go and maybe learn a little bit more. But then we need a place where there's more depth in the teaching and they can learn the methodology. They can see the case studies. They can, really get some coaching with us. I do those live. People come on Zoom. I coach them on things. And then from there, there's more trust, more value being given. They've opted into an email list to get on that workshop. So now in the meantime, they're getting emails from me, which have been perfected in terms of the value and everything that we just talked about before. Good offers being made there. And then I usually, from that point, I'm getting really technical with you, but hopefully this is helpful to people. Then I'll go into and then this next step has actually really changed between 2020 and 2025. And I'm happy to talk about what I've noticed in the services consulting coaching market and how it's shifted in the last 5 years. I used to, at that point, make a high ticket offer 10 to 30K and pretty much sell and close them from that point, sometimes with minimal sales calls and all really good fits because of everything that's just happened. Now I do more of a low ticket offer, something around $1,000 into a 4 or 6 week accelerator. A lot of those things I'm doing group style and courses. I also have one-on-one containers that are at that price point. And then the sales that are made high end are then made to people mostly who have done those containers and we've gotten to know each other. They've proved some value. They've gone through a course. They're starting to see big results in an area. So I find that sequence lets me do no cold calls, no outreach. I'm not bothering people who don't really need what I have to offer. I'm not trying to shove a 25K offer down someone's throat. I don't have a sales team where we're trying to get as many sales calls as possible. To be honest with you, I have 3 calls a week. And because most of my stuff is group, and then I do have a couple high ticket consulting clients. So it's a very lean model. And I find that way incrementally builds a lot of trust and develops our rapport. So I'll pause there if you have any other, if that answers your question or if you want to know anything else.
This is amazing. So I've been, so I always give a heads up to my guests before we start the episode. Hey, sometimes I'm going to take notes, right? And mute myself, don't mind me. So here I'm just having a big block of notes based on everything that you just said. But this is amazing. So there are multiple things I want to double down on and maybe ask you follow-up questions on. First of all, to one of the main things, which is around sales motion, right? I think a lot of B2B coaches and consultants today, so they worked on referrals most of the time. Now they want to set up an acquisition channel and they're gonna go for direct response channels. They want to get people directly into a call versus getting them to take small steps. And I want to double down on the one that you just mentioned here because I think that's such an important part of the sales process as a consultant. You have long sales cycles, long engagement. You cannot expect short trust cycles. So having that free content out there, whatever the form, right? For us, it's podcast. For you, it's Instagram. For others, it's like SEO, whatever. But like having that content that brings value, having those freebies. People say lead magnets are dead. They are not, definitely not. If they are valuable, they are super, super effective. Then getting them to engage, a free workshop. So I love that funnel, which is really building trust step by step and getting people to make small commitments up until, okay, I'm ready to buy because, this has been valuable all the way. The other thing I want to mention is inbound versus outbound. Technically, I think there is nothing wrong with outbound and it can get some results. I think you're right on you don't need 100 calls a week. You don't need 100 leads a week as a B2B coach or consultant. What you want is a few qualified calls each and every week with the right decision makers, not to shove a $20,000 offer down their throats, to take your words, Elaina, but like to build that trust, to set up the next meeting, to set up the next whiteboard session, and build trust as you go. That was my long-winded follow-up answer to all your points, Elaina, but
I love it.
I think this was really awesome. So talk to me a bit more about this sales motion. I think the marketing piece is clear, and I mean, amen. This is like preaching to the choir. How do you move people from, okay, you've taken those small steps to, hey, look, clearly this has been helpful. I think I can help more. We're talking about a 5 figures offer here. How do you make people cross the finish line with you, Elaina?
Yeah, one thing I'll just say based on your summary is just to emphasize to people this longer sales cycle that I'm speaking about. Like I get to some people, they might be like, okay, wait, by the time you do the social media marketing and then you host the workshops and then you make this other offer and you take them through like a 6-week course and then maybe they have to go through a few rounds of that. Like, isn't this like a long process? And yes, and I want to point that out, but I also want to point out how effective it is and how sustainable it is. That once you, and that's why a lot of the work I do with, brands initially is setting up these systems, getting the funnels in place, getting all these pieces lined up so they can do it over and over and over again. And so that initial like warm up period might be longer, but then when you get people, what I see is my clients, their clients don't leave. They take every course, every training, every offer that they have, they buy it all and they buy over and over again. They stay and the referrals get stronger. Everything snowballs. And I've, had very consistent high multiple 5-figure to 6-figure months for years and years using this model. So I just want to encourage people that a little bit of patience and putting the right systems into place and using more of this like warm audience inbound model will bear fruit for a really long time. Okay, remind me what was what it was the other question that you would ask me?
Finish line. How do you get people across it?
Yeah. So I see a lot of conversions from a short-term offer. So for instance, in the past, I wouldn't be available. And this is again like a 2020 versus 2025, 2026 market change. So I used to have a 50K 5-month offer and I could sell that front end and close people on the sales call, like take the credit card, close, done, and they get great results. Seeing a difference now where I lead more with these like 4 to 6 week group or one-on-one offers that are a little bit lower ticket, and they just receive, like I design them. So this is a good point about product suite cannibalization or service cannibalization. A lot of you, maybe if you're a consultant, you take people from A to B, but you might have offers where you're doing just A to B. And you haven't really thought that like actually this A to B has quite a few different steps to it. There's quite a different little like areas of transformation that lead up to the bigger transformation. So as a background to what converts really well for me is I've really broken down my customer journey. And I do this with clients where we see, all right, A to Z, you have like 4 or 5 different phases and topics within that. And so what I'll do is I'll do these smaller programs or these smaller one-on-ones or smaller launches and workshops on these micro niches within the overall transformation that I provide so that people come and they go really deep for 4 to 6 weeks on this one topic. Does it get them all the way there? No, and it's not intended to, because obviously it would be priced very differently if it was. But because that transformation is so complete and so siloed, then they either realize, well, I've got that we did this really deep dive on high ticket sales, but I see that I have got gaps in my messaging. I've got gaps in my team. I've got gaps in my money management, and I've got courses and trainings on all those other things. So they can move from one to like a parallel track and do another, silo type of a thing, or they can upsell and they see the value of getting into the A to Z big ticket program, which for me are my group masterminds, and those are 10 to 20K. And so I see a good amount of conversions into those because there's no cannibalization. It's not like I gave them what I normally do with a higher ticket client, just in a shorter, cheaper package. I'm very intentional in that. So a lot of people, I think, when they're not seeing conversions, it's because there's cannibalization in the product suite and they haven't thought through this customer journey so that people can stay and buy more things from them.
Again, to double down on this, Elaina, I think consultants don't realize enough that solving a problem for your clients is creating another problem for them, which is great because that means, okay, now I have a brand, I have people coming to me, but I don't have anything to, and get in their email box. Okay, well, let's set up an email marketing campaign. Okay, I'm into people's mailbox, but nobody books a call. Okay, let's set up a conversion optimization funnel. And you go down the path like this, and this allows you to break down the offer, address the need to the pain that they have right now, and like then take them down the funnel as you go. So when I was a consultant at PwC, the partner that taught me everything, Elaina, he told me, Guillaume, there are two types of consultants. The first one is the hunter. Like he was like, I'm a hunter. I love the smell of fresh blood in the morning. I love to go after new business. That's me. And it was like the second type, though, is the farmer. And the consultants being the most successful at PwC specifically are the farmers, the one able to take that initial engagement, over deliver for the clients, and then transform it into a multi-layered, multi-year projects involving like other teams from PwC. Those are the ones that grow the fastest because they're able to transform one client into much more revenue over the long term. Also because there is more value provided to the client, obviously. So in your case, I think you've already alluded to this, but I'm curious to get into the details of it. You get an initial engagement, you build further trust with someone because of the paid offer. How do you transform this into, okay, you've taken the 1K offer, now the 10 to 20K makes sense to you. Okay, now the 50K, and like, how do you create that recurring revenue with the initial engagements that you get?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I have many clients that have initially signed up for like a 3 to 5 month engagement with me, and 2 years later are still in the 20K mastermind, and they're still growing and they're evolving, and they wouldn't consider, like, they've become extremely loyal. They wouldn't consider going anywhere else at this point. It wouldn't make sense because I know their business so well. And I love this hunter and farmer analogy because definitely I'm a farmer in the marketplace. I teach my clients to be farmers, and ultimately the farming method is so much more sustainable. And I work with a lot of people too who are, I work with men and women, but I do work with a lot of women. I work with people who have children, who have families or preparing for that, and they don't want to be running around all the time, working 60 hours a week. The thing that, I have to say about my consulting career is I work 20 hours a week and have made millions of dollars. We're at, 4 million plus in revenue. And most of my clients, that's the model we're going to. They're working 25 hours a week and 6-7 figures. So I think one of the things that keeps people recurring and staying with me is this, we're always making things more simple. I'm not adding complexity to their business. I'm not, doing things that's going to create so much more hustle and so many more calls on their calendar where they're giving up the lifestyle freedom that they got into consulting or brand building in the first place for. And it's like the longer they work with me, the more they're just lopping off these sloppy parts of the business or these, areas where they're like, I didn't even realize that spending 50% of my revenue on more ads or more of this and that was a bad deal. And I'm like, this is a terrible deal. We're going to, fix this. And it gets leaner and neater and easier to manage. People have come to me with 10 people on their team, and after 6 months, after a year of working with me, they have 2 people on their team, and they love it because it's way more efficient. It's way more cost effective. Everyone's working less hours. The funnels are performing better. The courses are enrolling more people. So I would say it's just that orientation overall, and the values resonance of what people come in for and what they wind up getting are such a good match. And the lifestyle and the benefits of that are unquestionable. So they want to just continue growing with this approach. They're not going to coach hop and go to someone else who's going to have a model that's going to cause them to undo all of this simplification that we've gotten.
Love that. I have a bit of a curveball for you, Elaina. So I mean, obviously, you've built those 7 figures businesses, 4 million plus in revenues. Like, you know what you're doing. Where do you feel the most stuck right now? The reason I'm asking this is we will have some consultants listening to us right now who might be at the same level as you and who are stuck at the exact same point. And I think it's so valuable to hear from your peers how they think about the problem that you're facing right now and how they think about solving it. So in your case, what would that be?
I would say about like my most recent stuck point was I feel like I did the high ticket model, and maybe some people on here like really resonate with it. Probably one or two camps. They've done the high ticket model and they feel like they're maxed out on where are the more high ticket clients, or are people not trusting to buy high ticket as much, and they feel like they just plateaued at that. Or people have done the lower ticket stuff and they're really good at selling the, $9 thing to the $47 thing to the $1,000 thing. But they're like, Elaina, how did you sell 50K? One end of that will kind of reach a breaking point at some point. So I initially grew my business through high ticket and almost never I had a little bit of the attitude of, if you're not paying 10K, I'm not even going to talk to you type of a thing. And that worked for me up until a certain point. But about a year ago, really at the start of this year, I started to get frustrated with that. I felt like there was a cap and I hit that max point in my high ticket market. And I also, to be honest with you, and maybe some of you guys resonate with this, I'm a very multidimensional person. I evolve very quickly. I have, a lot of personal and professional growth that I undertake. So part of my challenge is keeping up with my business, reflecting who I am now and what I'm excited about now, and making it through those evolutions. This year I changed my niche a little bit. I changed some messaging and things in my own brand. So keeping up with those changes and not throwing off the audience that I've built and keeping the momentum going, that definitely can be a sticking point. And, how I solved that was this year, I just got a lot more excited about doing this model where I sell something a lot lower ticket. I have a lot more people buying from me than I ever have before. I used to be like 8 to 10 people in a business mastermind paying 20K for a season and do a couple of those per year and do very, very well, 7 figures a year. And now I'm feeling more excited to have more buyers and a little bit more activity and a little bit more ascension. So that's kind of how I've solved that. And I see myself going a little bit more into that, taking some of these live courses and making them fully passive, and then building out the passive side of the business, which I've done before, but never at the scale that I think I'm moving into now. And that's really exciting. I like challenging myself to be like, all right, let's try a little bit of a different model and grow and learn.
I think to your point around high ticket offers not performing the same way it used to, I think that's true. I think 10 years ago, hell, 5 years ago, you could just, ramp up an ad, get people into a call and sell them a 10K offer. I think this is probably still doable, but much, much harder. I had a guest come on the show and say, we live in a trust recession. Oh, Glass, this is so well said.
Yes.
I think B2B coaches and consultants and business owners in general, right? They need to find a way to build trust and build authority at scale, which is hard and takes time. But this is the only way to keep on selling those high ticket offers, because I always say anybody can claim anything on the internet nowadays because the barrier to entry has never been so low. And now with AI, you can claim even more crazy things without any proof. So finding the ways to build that trust and authority is super, super important, and constantly testing and iterating. And I like what you just said and what you're going through is like, yeah, okay, the model is evolving. Let's change, let's test, let's see what works, and let's keep on providing value. What's the next big thing for you, Elaina? I think you already alluded to it, obviously, but next 3 to 6 months, what's the next big thing?
Yeah, I just want to piggyback off of this point real quick about the trust recession and experimenting. So one of the biggest things I'll teach my clients is to actually experiment and innovate. I don't have like a little box model where I try to fit everyone into like, here's the thing you do, and then you exactly do this and it's gonna work. I help people to see what's working in your market. What data are you seeing? What do people respond to in your particular niche? I work with people all, like literally every continent, every different culture, language backgrounds. I work with people all over the world, also people in countries where they're like, I don't think I can sell high ticket. And then, my Swedish or Indian or South American clients, they go and sell high ticket. But that's because we're breaking the model. We're looking at the actual numbers, and I'm inviting them to like test and let's try. And I also, because I've been fortunate to do well, I have more bandwidth to take risk. And so I take a lot of risk in my business. I have a good reputation. I've done the millions. So I'm like, all right, yeah, let's see. And so about 12 months ago, I started with this workshop model and I started testing the price points. Okay, if I sell at 2K, how do people respond to that? If I sell at 5, if I sell, 5K for 3 months, or I do, a $500 intro offer, where am I seeing conversions? And it does, then if I see a trend, I'll do it. Then I'll pass it on to my clients. And I'm like, look, I'm just experimenting with this. Let's see, let's adapt it a little bit to you. And then they'll go do it. And then they'll see some responses. And, after a while, I've got a good amount of data from a good amount of different industries and business models that will back that up. But that experimentation, I just really want to encourage people, again, listening to this, like, don't look for the coach or consultant who's going to try to put you in this box and say this one model works for everyone. They're lying. There's no way to know that. They're going to have to work with you in your unique market. So what's next for me? Well, Guillaume, I just retired one of my programs that I've been running for 7 years, about 3 months ago. So that's a big deal, I think, for any course creator or brand or agency. If you have a moneymaker and you have this thing that you've been doing for years, it's so tempting to want to just do that indefinitely. And I hit the point where it was stale. It was still could make money, but I wasn't enjoying it. I think people could tell like something needed to change. So I pulled the plug on that. And I think a year from now, I want to have a new suite. I've always had courses and really great things that people can buy, but my methodologies have changed, times have changed. So I want to have a new suite of courses. I've been rolling out a lot more opportunities for people to just book one-on-one intensives with me. Like, I would never have made that available, like, an hour with me or 3 hours with me in a package. It would always be 3 months, 6 months, a year. And I'm rolling out more of those and enjoying it, because it's really fun to get on the phone with people who I've never met before. They've never done anything else. They just book an hour with me and I dive into every aspect of their business and we problem solve a ton of stuff. And a lot of times those people come back for more business and they want to join the next thing. And a lot of times there's a certain segment of people, they just want that the literal consulting. Just give me an hour, tell me what I should do to double my revenue. I'll go implement. I don't need you coaching me every week to go implement it. So things like that, I'm really excited to see how that works. It's been great for revenue, contrary to my previous opinion on that, where I thought, oh, that keeps you kind of like chasing the next 1 hour and the next 1 hour. Well, that's not where my majority of my revenue comes from. It comes from these group programs. It comes from courses. It comes from other systems, and it frees me up to enjoy those. And actually, they've been extremely profitable. So those, and then I, got new podcasts coming out, new YouTube channel. I think a lot of people are going more in the direction now, myself included, of YouTube podcasting, the evergreen content creation versus the churn of Instagram and LinkedIn, where you always have to be posting something new and it disappears within 24 hours. So I'm doubling down on more of those evergreen type of channels and enjoying that a lot more.
Times. I love that for you, Elaina. If people want to find out more about you, see what you do, and potentially get into one of those amazing email marketing campaigns, where should they go?
ElainaGiolando.com/free gifts. And there are tons of trainings on there. And then you can also go over to my Instagram, hey, Elaina Giolando, and DM me. I would love to I don't have someone that answers my DMs for me. I will personally respond to you. I like that. If you send me a voice note and tell me what you got out of this conversation, I'll voice note you back and hear about, where you're at in your brand building. So please connect. And yeah, I'd just love to get to know you guys wherever in the world you are.
Old enough to say that some of my guests give their phone number. I'm like, this is at your own risks and perils. Not sure of the English expression, but that's how we say in English. But here we go. We'll put all the links in the description. And what I can say for sure, Elaina, is that you just earned at least one connection on LinkedIn from this interview. Me. Thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.